Hey there, this is Niels Beardfoot, and today I want to show you how to build a crown from leather. Make sure the pattern fits to your size and then tape it together and cut it out. For this project I use a 3.5mm thick match tent leather. If you use a thinner leather, it might be easier to mold the horns. I always like to use an awl to mark the edges for cutting, but also you can easily use just some kind of pen. If you separate the pieces first, it makes cutting out way easier. Another tip is to use a hole punch for the tight corners. Now I moisten everything completely from both sides. And I mark down all the lines for carving, for punching holes, and all the details that is on the pattern. I mark it down on the leather. Only for the lines along the edges I use a wing divider, so this makes everything much more precise. When the leather is pretty much dry, but still cool on the touch, I can start using my swivel knife to cut the lines. And now it's hammer time. With a mallet and my stamps I get these nice 3D impressions into the leather. Here I use a camouflaged stamp for the outer edges. With the beveler stamp, I can press areas down and make them look like they were deeper than the others. So here's my technique on shaping. For this gem I want to give it a look like it would be more 3D and press it out a little bit. So I thin out the leather on the flesh side and I moisten it, and this makes it much easier to use a bone folder and press the whole area outwards so it looks like a real gem. Hammer time again, I use a round punch to punch all the holes for the closure, as well as a diamond shaped punch to punch the holes for sewing on the horns. To break the edges, I bevel them on both sides. This will make the burnishing later on much easier. So now everything we did to the crown itself, we also have to do to the horns. So here I use a stylus and some tools to get deeper horn-like impressions into the leather. And of course we need to punch the sewing holes and bevel the edges. Short break, this is only to give you an idea how your pieces may look like now. Getting now to the most messy part of the project, I use gloves and I use dye, Fiebling's Professional Oil dye in black to give everything a nice black base coat on both sides, top and backside. To give everything a more expensive look, I use acrylic paint in gold to paint everything. The only thing I try not to do is get into all the cracks, since the antique gel will later on sit there anyway and I don't need to waste paint. Since I do not have the color of the gems that I want in acrylic paint with metallic effect, I combine my Pearl-X powder together with the resist and use it just like paint and paint all the gems. To finish up everything, I use some antique gel to give it a more old and aged look. Note that in this specific case it is not necessary to put on a coat of resist first, since it will only stain the leather a little bit darker, but here this is totally fine. With other antique gels you might need a coat of resist first. With a paper towel I wipe away all the excess antique gel so it only stays into the deeper areas. And now with the resist I seal up everything so the antique gel is not washed away that easy if it comes into contact with water. With some resist on the edges, you can use the moisture to burnish them and make them smooth and nice to handle. And if you have also moistened the backside with the resist, you can use the moisture to preform the horns. So basically just put resist on everything. Sewing 3D is always kind of messy, so there's no specific technique I'm using. Just use needles, use waxed thread and sew them together and then sew them on the horns. You want to make sure that your horns have already their desired shape before you sew them on the crown. You also can reshape them later on, but it's way easier if you do it before. As the last step, I use my resist as a screw locker and I put my Sam Browne buckles in for the closure. And that's it. I hope you liked this little tutorial. Check out this pattern and all the others I got on my Etsy store. And see you next time. Ciao!